Well, a very good afternoon to you and welcome to the Farm Kenya show. I'm Noki Kimboy, and today we have quite an interesting discussion. You know, it's one thing to get food, but it's another thing to get nutritious food. You might be eating, but you're eating off balance. So you're taking lots of carbohydrates in your meal and you end up lacking the necessary nutrients to make sure that you are holistically growing as a human being. Now, the challenge has always been when we're doing the production. Can we do production that for crops that are very nutritious so that as an end consumer, you are able to get those needed nutrients? In here between, there is a huge gap that we need to fill. And that's where the discussion comes in of enablers to proper nutrition. So from production level, what are the enablers in between to be able to make sure that you're assessing the critical nutrients that you need? And one of the enablers in between has always been technology. I know we live in the age of AI and applications and let me Google, let me talk to ChatGPT, all this. Could we utilize technology in the age that we are in to make sure that the populace is getting the much needed nutrients from the producer? And even at the production level, are we able to utilize this tech to make sure that we're producing better plants that are nutritious for this population? That is our discussion today. And I have an expert in studio. Dr. Christine Chege is a senior scientist, yeah? So they're junior scientists, yeah? There's a senior scientist, food, environment, and consumer behavior. And she's very keen on matters to do with market systems for healthy diet. And she comes from Alliance of Biodiversity International and SEAT. And thank you very much for making time to speak to us. I mean, that foundation, Daktari, is that the case that it's always about not only production, but also making sure that we are producing the much needed nutrients?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Noah, and thank you for this opportunity to discuss this very important topic within our food system. So for a very long time, many people out here, including our own, systems, we've been looking a lot at the production level. And we tried to, many people have been working on the production level, making sure that enough food is produced, supplied to the food system, to the different actors. But then what you just explained has been a gap for a long time. How does this food get to the market? What we call the food environment. The food environment being the space where the consumers interact with food. Where do you get your food? Maybe from the open air markets, maybe from the supermarket, maybe that is your food environment. That is the source of your food. And when you go to those spaces, what kind of food are you purchasing? For instance, if you are from Nairobi, urban areas, you're not producing your own food, maybe you're going to the market. What kind of food are you purchasing? Do you just go because I'm used to eating ugali and vegetables, usukuma wiki, for example, then every day in, day out, I'll be eating ugali and vegetables? Or do you look at the diversity of your food? So this is something that we've really been trying to push forward as an organization, saying we've done a lot of work at the production level. Let's not stop that. It's still very important because as a country, global perspective as well, we are not there yet. But let's not forget the consumer end, because we may produce food, but people are eating the wrong food. And if you look at Kenya, for example, at the moment, for a very long time, we've been talking about malnutrition in terms of undernutrition. Like children are undernourished, wasted, stunted. But at the moment, we have an additional problem that we have a lot of overweight and obesity. Meaning people are eating, yes, you don't have a problem to get food, but then what food are you getting? What food are you consuming? Eventually, this food is now in Nairobi, if you look at what many of us are consuming, it's food that is ultra-processed, very quick to fix, quick to eat food, quick fixes, and that is adding on to our energy or our nutrition, over-nutrition part of it, and therefore overweight and obesity becoming also very prominent in Kenya, especially as one of the African countries.
Definitely.
So looking at those perspectives are very important. Don't forget production, but don't forget consumption. It's equally important.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And there in between, we shall be looking at what are the opportunities within the value chain.
Exactly.
To make sure that, especially as consumers, we are able to not only go to these food environments where we get our foods just to buy for the sake of it, but how we empowered to make sure that we are buying what our bodies need.
Exactly.
That is one. And also technology as an enabler, even from the production end of things. How can we empower farmers to diversify and cater to the needed market? And sometimes the demand maybe, it's like the consumption of broccoli. These days I see people, broccoli is being sold, in open air markets. A lot of people are consuming. Initially it was thought like, a kind of vegetable, the supermarket vegetable, but people realizing the nutritional value. So how can we leverage on tech to make sure that there is an element of democratization when it comes to choice of nutrition from production all the way to consumption? So it's going to be a very interesting discussion. But at this particular moment, I'd like us to take a look at Farm Guide. And today we get to discuss matters to do with how different players within the food ecosystem and the food system, from government agencies all the way to innovators, are able to make sure that we are not only producing, as Dr. Chege has put it, but we are producing what is needed, and also the end consumer is empowered to make proper choices in a manner that grows our food system, but also kills the issue of silent hunger and, imbalanced nutrition. Take a look at Farm Guide.
My name is Chepto Mercy. I'm the lead training coordinator with DigiCow. I work with, I'm the trainer of trainers. We mostly work with smallholder farmers who are they are working in livestock and also crop farming. We found out that the farmer mainly makes decisions without actually having all the information that they need. So you find a scenario where a farmer needs to feed their cow, but they don't know what to do and when. So DigiCow has an app that is used by a farmer. They can learn anything they need at any time. Where they learn about how to care for a pregnant cow, how to care for a calf when it's born, how to care for crops when you've planted them, how do you manage it, And we found that a trainer or we cannot be there every time a farmer needs information for every certain state that they are in, because when you meet them, one has a cow that is calving down, one just calved down, every person is at a different stage at any time. So the app allows for everybody to have the information that they need at that time that they need. It also allows them to keep records, and this is not only for the farmer, but also we work with animal health practitioners where they can keep records for a farmer, because we know most farmers have smartphones, but you also have farmers who have featured phones, mulkamwizis. So we have support for those farmers as well, where when a vet comes to your farm, they serve your animal, they keep those records for you, and this farmer gets prompting SMSs telling them what they need to do when they need to do it.
I'm Mildred Malo. I'm a small-scale trader based in Kibra. Most women and most youths are into agriculture and agribusiness. So that is a platform for them to use to market their produce, to trace even the income, the expenditure, the losses and everything. It is an easier way, if it's managed well, it's an easier way for them to be able to know, are we making losses? Are we making profits? Again, a lot of youths are into digital world. So the time they spend even in the X space, in the TikTok and in the other social media spaces, that is the right time now to get to sell their produce, to reach out to clients, and they can even get more clients because they have more followers.
My name is Edin Ogero. I work with Safaricom PLC and at the public sector as a product manager, focusing on Agritech products. As a consumer, at times you get worried about the food you consume. And now that most of us are moving to organic food. For instance, when you go to some of the supermarkets, you find this organic section where you can be able to tell where was this crop planted, who did it, by just scanning through an app. So As a consumer, I look at organic farming as one of the avenues of being healthy. And as a provider for tech solutions, we're thinking about how can we enable this ecosystem be able to trace this organic farming well. Number one, by using blockchain technology, be able to trace back where did this farmer located, what type of input they use. So as a technology company, those are the things we're thinking about. How can we enable organic farming and be able to provide more information digitally to whoever want to consume organic foods.
I'm Patrick Moirori from Nairobi City County Food System Department. We have policies in place, and we have at the world level, we have guidelines that give on how food should be grown, how it should be distributed, how again it should be consumed. At the national level, we also have the food security. Food safety policy, and at the county level, we are domesticating the national and the international food safety regulations so that we have it at the county level. So what does this mean to a common man, mwananchi? It means that, for instance, we have the protocols on how food is presented, like in the markets, that food is not placed on the ground, but rather it is placed on elevated packages. Now, such that, again, when we have our food vendors placing food on the ground, we see that it is actually a health hazard. So we are creating awareness around that side.
For me to get 1 ton of vegetables, maybe I have to work with 50 farmers. And if I have to contact each of these farmers separately, that means my transaction cost will be very high. And for me to make business, I have to recover that cost through my sales, meaning my price will be very high. Now, if you are using digital tools, then this should be able to support. And we see also a lot of our results show that the MSMEs we interviewed are saying that when they use digital tools, they see that their transaction costs are actually going down, because they don't have to contact each person individually, but they are contacting several people at the same time. They're able to reach different groups of farmers, so they source huge volumes of commodities at a lower price. So this is one of the entry points where digital tools can help to reduce transaction costs. Also, there is the issue of traceability, for example. There is the issue of keeping records, and you're able to know what are you buying from where. So all these pieces of information, and you put that together, then it shows that if there is high adoption of digital tools, it can actually help to reduce the cost of the foods that the micro, small, medium enterprises are selling, and eventually they transfer that benefit to the consumer such that they are able to sell them at a lower price than the normal, those others who are not adopting digital tools.
Incredible innovations right there. And that's the beauty of technology. It breaks bounds. Dr. Chege, you're just talking there about how tech is very powerful. And for starters, when we talk about technology in the world, is in every aspect of our lives. I'm thinking about food systems, even starting at the production level. We have technology to do even artificial intelligence at the farm level to empower farmers. It's helping with production. I've seen people map their farms with AI and whatnot. Talk to me about the role of tech, especially in the Kenyan food system. So far, where are we in adoption, and what impact are we seeing?
Yeah, so like you've mentioned rightly, when you think of technology, it actually cuts across the entire food system. So at the production level, you'll find farmers using digital tools or technology at different levels. There are some who are using the digital tools or the technology broadly, even to tell them what they need to plant, when and how. There's what we call the climate information services, and already the government is providing those services. And also within our climate action team, they connect with the government, actually several countries, to provide this kind of information. So the farmers are able to know what kind of commodities do they produce or do they plant where? When do they expect it to rain? Our Met department is doing that. So all these are technologies, different types of technology that farmers are using. If you move forward within the value chain, you have the, for instance, the market traders or the food distributors. And then you have the small and medium enterprises who could be the small vendors or the larger vendors like the medium enterprises, small enterprises. Then you have the consumers. So when you get to the consumer space and the vendor space, or rather the micro, small, medium enterprise space, again, they use digital tools here to be able to access, for the vendors or for the MSMEs, they are using these digital tools within the chain facing the producers to access the commodities, so they can link directly with the farmers to know which farmers. Of course, you have to provide the farmers and you list them into applications. But then you are able to know which farmers have which commodities and what volume, so that tomorrow if I need 1 ton of tomatoes, I know where to get it. And then again, they are connecting with the consumers so that the consumers then, they are able to supply these commodities to the consumers. But then not so much of that has been adopted. There are several companies, I think, that are doing that in Kenya. But we see there's still huge gaps at that space, especially linking to the consumers. Sometimes the companies will just use the digital tools for marketing to say, hey, we have these and these and these commodities in the market, but they don't specifically target specific group of consumers. But then they leave the information out there for the consumers who are aware of this technology. They go in and they look for those commodities within the companies.
Yeah. Now when we come to the production level, you've spoken about digital tools to empower the farmers, because a majority of our food do come from smallholder farmers. And sometimes that adoption is at the production level can be faced by challenges, because I feel a lot of smallholder farmers, like there's so much happening around them. Talk to me about the realities of this majority of smallholder farmers and how they perceive technology and so far the uptake that you've seen. Is it something that is interesting them, that is sort of cutting cost on their end, that is boosting their diversity and possibilities of tapping into different markets, because farmers are always looking for markets?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Many smallholders farmers are actually interested in these technology or digital tools because for them, when they have access to those digital tools, it helps them to access the market for their commodities. If you go, let's say, don't even go very far, you can go to somewhere like Kiambu, where there are so many farmers, smallholder farmers producing the vegetables. Sometimes you will go there and you find many of them don't have market for those vegetables. They just throw them away, they feed the animals. But in Nairobi, people don't have enough vegetables to eat. They're also looking for the vegetables to purchase. So that link, that connection is missing. And when the farmers are sensitized or are made aware of these digital tools, they actually take them very positively. Many of the farmers we've been working with, and we inform them about different types of tools that they can use for market, they take it very positively because one, it provides them a market opportunity for their commodities. Second, it helps them to reduce the cost. Because, if you're selling your commodities to specific buyers, you don't have to keep calling or to take your commodity to market. Let's say you go to Wakulima market, you get there with 1 ton of tomatoes or X amount of tomatoes, and the entire market is flooded with tomatoes. No one is buying your tomatoes. Within 1-2 days, you end up throwing them away. So a lot of food loss and waste. And we see these kind of challenges are addressed, or at least to a very high level, they are addressed by use of these digital tools. So, I have my 50 kilograms of tomatoes or 1 ton of tomatoes, I know who is going to buy it. So I don't have to spend a lot of money to search for the market, to transport the commodity, and eventually I don't even get to sell all of it.
Okay. And when you talk about the tech itself, it's a micro ecosystem, a microcosm within the value chain, which, as we've called it, an enabler, a tool that can help the value chain grow. But also its foundation is dependent on the regulations of the day, on the environment that we give these technologies to be able to grow. So when you talk about Agritech, to be specific, Have we, from your observation, have we given enough support to see the growth? I see like DigiCow, very young people coming up with very interesting innovations right there to solve the issue with dairy farmers, empower them to be able to make better decisions at what stage of their cattle and whatnot. Are we giving enough support? What needs to be done to see that the tech environment within the agri-systems is growing?
Yeah. Kenya has one of the, if you look across Africa, I think we take more than 23-25% of the agri-technologies, or rather SMEs in Africa. So it shows the trend is growing, but I think there are several gaps, and these are some of the things that were coming out also from our workshop 2 weeks ago, where we had several stakeholders discussing what are the gaps, what are the challenges. We had several digital innovators as well, and we were trying to understand where exactly do we have gaps and what could be done. Some of the things that were coming out of that workshop, actually alluding directly to your question, are, for instance, things to do with awareness. And the point here is many people are not aware of these digital tools. They're not aware, as a farmer, smallholder farmers, some of them don't know actually there exist some digital tools that they can use to link with specific buyers of their commodities. So they don't get into that portfolio of being one of the supplier of the commodity, and they miss out. So awareness creation is very important, and we need to do a lot of that. Secondly, it's issue to do with policies. A question was coming up. I mean, our country has very good policies in several spaces, but then what can we do with digital technology? I mean, especially Agritech, to encourage many smallholder farmers to use the tools, to encourage small enterprises, also including the micro ones, like very small ones, to be able to use those technologies. Because many of the MSMEs were actually complaining about cost. They say designing, developing these applications sometimes takes a lot of time, a lot of money. We don't have the resources. We may have the knowledge of knowing what needs to be done, but we need capital. We need money to be able to design those to develop or even to buy those digital tools. So, and the question there that was coming up is, what can the policymakers, the government, do to incentivize increased use of these digital tools or technology by the food system actors? So the policy aspect also comes in strongly there, in terms of being an enabler of use of digital tools or other technology broadly within the agri-food system.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, we've always been told Kenya has a very interesting, on paper, our ducks are in a row when it comes to anything, on paper, we are very good. In terms of implementation, of course, there's always room to improve on that. And this brings me to still at the production level, because I know we are building into the value chain, and we'll get into the nutrition element later on, sooner than later. But still, there's always this notion that one of the barriers to uptake, and I think you've alluded to this, the awareness, but also there is a notion to at the production level, we don't have as many tech savvy, as many young farmers as we ought to, especially considering that the average age of this country is 19. But we're still being told the average age of a farmer is 60. Yeah, farming is still old. We need young people there. And we've seen veteran farmers urging young people to come at the production level. Yeah. I know young people are plugging in different spaces. Yeah. They are connecting products to markets, and people are making good money doing that. But at the production level, from your observation, is that the reality, or is it a past statistic that people keep holding on to?
Yeah, so I would say I see change. In the last 5 years or so, that trend is changing. Previously, you'd go to the farmers and you find for sure the average age of those farmers in the rural areas, small holder farmers, was 60 years, maybe the youngest would be like 50 years. But we're talking about 50, 60 to 70, even 70 years. Those are the farmers we are talking about. But if you look at the trend in the past like 5 years, since the tech started coming up strongly in our country and young people started using technology actually in farming, they started being innovative in terms of what they're producing, how they're producing those commodities, knowing that there are some markets, some of them actually niche markets, that they could supply their commodities. We see that trend now is changing. More and more young people are going to the farm level and they're producing commodities actually. Of course, the big challenge also still remains the farm sizes. The sizes of lands are not increasing.
Okay.
So if it's a household with several number of siblings or children, eventually that land is subdivided, and you find with the subdivision of land, people remain with very small pieces of land. So the production volume is not as high because of that subdivision. There are new trends coming up and new innovations coming up with aggregation of land. And this is one of the model we're also trying in another project we have in Kisumu, where we're trying to show people, look, with all this division of land, you can actually come together as a village, aggregate your land, do your production in a more tech way, where you can use technology in production and machineries, and you are able to do diversifying production, and you market your commodity as a group, which also means you have higher volumes to market. You don't have small volumes because each of you owns a quarter of an acre of land. But overall, I would say there's a change in that, and hopefully in the next few years, we'll see more and more youth going back to farming, but also playing a big role within the food system, especially at farm level, at distribution, and the end SME level, where we are talking now about distribution to the consumers.
Okay. Now, you brought up a very pertinent issue about land and subdivision. I think that's one of the biggest problems we've had in the country. Real estate is bringing in more returns, and I'm like, I better build lots here than continue with this coffee farming that, generations past have been doing. And case in point, we've seen that in Kiambu a lot, encroachment of farmland and even policy. Because initially we had, mapping up of these lands and saying this is agricultural land, this is industrial land, but it seems those barriers are being broken. Some of these projects that you are doing at the county level, do you feel on that land issue there is proper enforcement to make sure that agricultural land stay protected?
I think that varies. Because we see like areas where we're working, it's really the production areas, the agricultural land. But you're right, like you're saying, if you look most of the areas within Kiambu area, which were previously agricultural land, now it's residential areas. Many people cut down coffee, tea, and they started putting up real estates. So it's many people living there now, not production land anymore. So I think that's an area where people need to look ahead also, even before they think of policy. Yes, policy is one thing, but even as Kenyans, I know many people who cut down their coffee 3, 4, 5 years ago, and now they're regretting because coffee is starting to come up again as a lucrative commodity in the country. But you don't have your coffee, you already cut the trees down. Even if you plant it today, it will take another 2, 3 years to get to the same level where you are last year or last few years ago. So as the population, as Kenyans, looking ahead and thinking, what is the value addition, what is the value proposition of changing this land from farming to another use? I think that would also be very helpful.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And now to bring the discussion back, because I think I was excited, so we are going a little bit off rail. But back to the element of nutrition. Does this big issue of land subdivision have an impact when it comes to nutrition components of the food at the production level? And what other considerations need to be met at the production level so that we are not missing out on producing nutritious food?
Yeah, absolutely. It will affect because at the farm level, what we encourage is there's what we call ag biodiversity. Ag biodiversity meaning you're not just producing one commodity. And, when you look at many of the smallholder farmers in the rural areas, many of them will eat what they produce. So if you're just producing maize only, You may end up using that maize for your ugali and maybe just buying a stew or a vegetable. Chances of diversifying your consumption are very slim. But if you have a diversified production, so you have more ag biodiversity at your farm level, then it means today you can harvest managu, you eat with your ugali, tomorrow you have a spinach, the other day you have your tomatoes. So the diversity also in your consumption increases. So the less diversity we have, and if that is combined with low knowledge or awareness on making the right food choices, then we'll tend to see that many consumers will actually have a very poor diversity of food they're consuming, meaning not very good in terms of diet quality. So that has a correlation, I would say.
Definitely. Very, very important. And we'll take a look. We want to take a short break, but we'll take a look at how at that particular level we can utilize this blessing that we call technology to help us diversify when it comes to production level as we move up the value chain. Is that fine? So we have Dr. Christine Chege, and she's sharing with us. She's actually a senior scientist on matters food environment and consumer behavior. And we still talk about our consumption behavior and how we can build better behaviors when it comes to what is happening on our plates to make sure that we are staying healthy and we are growing as a nation. But for now, let's take a short break. Keep it fun. All right, welcome back to the Farm Kenya Show. Today we're discussing matters to do with technology as a big enabler to proper nutrients, okay? And this discussion is geared towards you as a consumer. How can you make sure that through the value chain where your food is produced, it is enabled so that it also makes it easier for you to find and access a balanced diet, in easier terms. At the end of the day, feeding properly and nutritious food, which is important for you. In studio, I have Dr. Christine Chege, who is Senior Scientist, Food Environment and Consumer Behavior at Alliance Biodiversity and SEAD. And Dr. Christine, I know the first bit we talked so much about production, which is very important and critical to understand what the farmers are doing to produce this nutritious food. Now, when you move up the value chain, okay, we always talk about distribution and now to the end consumer at the end of the value chain. In between here, okay, these are distributors. One of the challenges, of course, you talked about is connectability within the country, where one side of the country is producing food and the other side of the country is literally starving. That is happening in this country, and that hinders food security and nutrition to the populace. Talk to me about the role of distribution and also how we can utilize tech to make sure that this nutritiously produced food is actually bridged to the end consumer in between here.
That middle piece, for a long time we've called it the missing middle. I don't think it's missing anymore. But it's been a missing middle in that, exactly what you explained, there's a lot of production happening. There are many people, many consumers looking for that food, but there's no link between the two. So you find that leads to, of course, the consumers not having enough food to consume, food security issues, but also nutrition security. They may not get the diversity and quality of the food they want because maybe what they get available to them is very expensive or is not as diverse as they need. And therefore, this link, the missing link here from production to consumption becomes a big barrier. At the same time, the farmers also have a lot of production. They can't market their commodities because they just know Kamau who comes and picks my commodity. If Kamau is not here, I end up throwing my tomatoes away. Because of that missing link, a lot of food loss and waste, especially food loss, post-harvest production losses are seen at the production level. But then with this distribution part, now you will have different types of distributors. Could be the food distributors in terms of the traders who are sourcing food from the farmers and taking to the consumers. You could also have small, medium enterprises who actually source directly from the farmers and they make the food available to consumers. This is a key component of the value chain because it connects those pieces. And depending on how that connection happens, it may increase the consumption of food, especially for the low-income consumers who cannot afford very expensive food, or it may limit the consumption of those foods by certain category of consumers, like the low-income consumers. And that's where the aspect of using tech now comes in strongly. How do you source your food? How do the distributors distribute the food? Is it very manual such that the cost, the transaction cost, the sourcing costs are very high? And therefore the food that gets to the market is priced very highly. And not everyone can consume those foods or can purchase those foods because they're expensive. But the digital tools can help in that space where this specific, I have my tool as a distributor or as a small medium enterprise, and I have a portfolio of 50 or 100 farmers who I can every day say, okay, they need to tell me who has the the vegetables, for instance, ready for market. I know where to get the commodities tomorrow. And when you are sending your pickup to go pick the food, you don't just go knocking every door. You know, it's Christine, it's Noah, it's Kamau, it's so-and-so who has the food today. So the search cost or the transaction cost become very low. And that's also then helps in terms of the final commodity to the consumer. And second aspect is the issue of traceability. I know many times in this country we've talked about food safety. One of the biggest challenge being we don't know where the food I'm buying from. If I go to Moduro market, I'm buying my tomatoes there because I like buying from the open air market. I don't know which farmer produced those tomatoes. If I eat the tomatoes today and I have a stomachache, who do I blame? I don't know. Same thing with some of the supermarkets. Some supermarkets, I think, use traceability, but not all of them. So if you go and purchase the food and you have a problem with the food, maybe because it has very high contamination levels, or it has things like we've heard of high pest residues being in the food, can you actually trace back and know where that food came from? And you hold that producer responsible? Many times we don't know.
Yeah. So the missing link, as you called it, quote unquote, in between, plays a huge role.
Absolutely.
In traceability, which is very important and key to nutrition. And I'm wondering that middle piece. How do we empower them to build on cementing traceability? Because I see it's a growing trend. In fact, there is this, people encouraging others to, if you can buy in from supermarkets, because there is an element of, we know where this food was produced. And like when you buy in the open air market, how do we implement, first of all, traceability at a large scale open air market food environment as such, as in equal measures like what is happening in maybe supermarket chains? Is there a way to do it at large scale?
Yes, actually we've seen some pilots in the previous years. I don't know if they're still operational, but I have seen personally some pilots where some SMEs or some companies were applying the traceability approach using digital tools, blockchains also, to be able to link the farmers. They get the commodities from smallholder farmers, and they tag the crates of, they know these are bananas. This crate came from this village with this group of farmers. So they are able to trace those crates of bananas and of tomatoes to specific locations where they came from. When they are transported all the way to Nairobi, they supply those specific commodities to specific vendors. So that they know the commodities with specific vendors are coming from specific production zone or production groups, and they're able to have that kind of traceability. Of course, now from the trader to the consumer, that traceability may break down there because that is coming. I mean, the sales are going to individual consumers. Maybe it's one banana or two bananas, and they don't have a specific tag. But up to the vendors, I've seen that traceability actually happening, and it is possible, including even at the wholesale market, because these wholesale market traders, they know where the food is coming from. So if they are able to track that and using some applications, they know food from XYZ locations have come to this area and these have been dispatched or sold to these and these traders within XY locations.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's very possible.
It is possible.
It just need to be done, implemented on large scale, because I can imagine all the markets across the country.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the consumer, because all this is geared towards making sure that the consumer gets proper, well-nutritioned food at the end of the day. And the underlying theme is that we can utilize technology to empower us in different levels, production, in between there, and now at the consumer end. How do we empower the consumer, first of all, to be able to tell? Because there is the responsibility of I as Noah, as you as Dr. Christine, to make sure that I'm taking some proteins, I'm taking some carbohydrates, a well-balanced diet. There is that responsibility. But how do we empower consumers to be able to make sure that they are getting nutritious food?
What you just mentioned is actually the starting point. Before even we think of how do we get this food to the market and how consumers will eat nutritious food, do they have the right information? Are they empowered to be able to make the right choices in terms of their diets, in terms of their foods? Having the consumers get the right information is key, because if they don't have the right information, they will just eat whatever they get. And I know some time back, this trend is changing again, but if you look back like 5 years and back, there was a big trend. Okay, I still see some of this trend actually in the smaller towns, in the rural areas, where you see some people, you've been struggling and now you have some income and you feel like, okay, now I can afford to eat bread every day. I don't need to eat arrowroots. I don't need to eat sweet potatoes, because that is food for the poor. But bread and sonda, that is the food. Wrong information. Yeah. If you look at the sonda, I mean, many of these fizzy drinks is just a lot of sugars and a lot of energy, but not a lot of nutrition in it. Not any, if at all. They don't even have at all any nutrient values in it. So, but then because the people have that perception that since I have some money, then I can eat this food, which will show that I am actually I can purchase some bread and some fizzy drinks, for instance. So that again is the wrong perception. So then consumers need to understand the arrowroots you are eating actually have better nutrients.
Okay.
The sweet potatoes you are leaving behind have better nutrients.
Okay.
Your amaranth has a good nutrition value. So this consumer awareness is key, and this is where we all need to play a role as research organization. Of course, the government is doing a lot on that as well from the ministry, sensitizing consumers to tell them what is good for your health, what do you need to consume in terms of making the right choices for your for your foods.
Okay.
Yeah. Then once the consumers have the information, now they are faced with different types of commodities in the market, they can actually make the right decision.
Okay.
As long as the market is able to provide that. If the market is providing the diversity, then you know today I should purchase maybe some foods with vitamins, some food with protein, some food with different other micronutrients. Maybe it's vitamin A, it's zinc, or whatever that my body needs. But then you make that choice because you have the information and the food is available.
Okay.
And affordable.
And affordable. Availability, affordability, which is critical. But I'm very much interested, because you've talked about being informed.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we live in an age, I don't know how to assess the way we process information in this current age, because initially people used to read, so you'll have to understand everything. Right now we are comfortable. It's like, I don't have to know it, but I can ask, a chat GPT at the end of the day and I'll get my answers. Talk to me about how tech can be an enabler sort of to empower consumers to make proper choices when it comes to what they eat.
Yeah. Actually, it can be an enabler and a disenabler at the same time.
Double-edged sword.
Exactly. You might use the same tech to get the wrong information online. But then on the positive side, yes, tech can be very useful in terms of disseminating the right information to consumers. And within the Alliance, we've used this a lot, where we develop applications that consumers can actually use to get to know what to consume and how to consume. At the moment, we are also developing some dashboards, for example, that show the cost of a healthy diet. And you can see, for you to have a healthy diet, you need this type of food, X, Y, Z. And if X is not available, this is the replacement of X. You don't have to go looking, for example, for, let's say something like if, let's say potatoes are very expensive on a specific season. And you know potatoes will give you the same nutrient as commodity X. So then you are able to see what's the substitute that will give you the same level of healthy diet, such that you are able to consume a healthy diet but not extremely expensive, because you are looking for one specific commodity or two specific commodities. So we are developing these dashboards which can actually help to show cost of a healthy diet and what people need to consume, and which will also be used as a policy tool at the government level. I mean, the plan is to have these, and then we can also share with our policymakers to show there's a tool that can actually make some good decisions, can help to make decisions at the national level.
No, that's very important. And I've realized dieting it's very cultural. You know, there are some cultures that believe kukula, you eat until your stomach cannot take it anymore. You sit like this and you're like, even though vilani mekula, okay?
Yeah.
But there is also room for championing for nutrition, not just quantity and feeling full at the end of the day. And I think it's a very cultural thing where, especially our education system, do you think these are the soft points, low-hanging fruits that we can start introducing that proper awareness of what we eat, so that we have sort of a whole generation that is coming up with easier, understanding, even utilizing some of the tools that you guys are gaining traction, because it is something that has been inculcated in them.
Yes, absolutely. And when you say people don't have the knowledge, like what we are talking about in terms of what do you need to eat, how should your plate look like? We say at the very minimum, look how colorful your plate is. The more colorful, the better, meaning the more diverse the plate is, and therefore high chances that you actually have a diverse source of nutrients on your plate. But then many people don't have this kind of knowledge. They don't have this information. So if we can already start disseminating this information in the early ages within our school systems, our school curriculum, this would really, really help. And we see already there are trends where some of the, within the curriculum, we see some of these trends coming in, where there's more nutrition being discussed, what we call also nutritious value chains being trained in. The students are being trained on that, but I think there's still a lot to do on that chain in terms of trying to instill this knowledge from the early beginning within the schools. At the university, people can actually learn and be trained more about it, to know how do I make some of these choices, and how do I play a role as a stakeholder when you complete your campus, you're going out there. What role can you play to change the food system, or to transform the food system, as we put it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I even saw some citizen-driven initiatives. This I saw it a couple of weeks ago on Twitter, where somebody sort of is picking products and testing them for residues and whatnot. And people are like supporting, could you test this? Could you test that? Yeah. And it seems there is an element, as much as this has to be done, that's the double-edged sword you're talking about, it can cut the right way or also the wrong way if not handled well. But do you think there is room for consumers to understand their rights when it comes to food, even the issues to do with traceability, having knowing where the food that you're consuming is produced, should that be a fundamental understanding too for our consumers? And what do you think that will do in the long run on matters nutrition uptake for we as consumers as we finish up?
Yeah, you've mentioned two things. What is the role of each of us within the food system?
Yes.
We want to transform the food system to a healthy, nutritious food system where everyone has access to nutritious food and can afford nutritious food. And there I think we all have a role to play. If you're a producer, then you need to know that you're producing food for a multitude of population of people, not just for 1-2 people. And therefore, if you make the wrong decisions at the farm level, that will not just affect people within your village or 1-2 people, but it might actually have a big negative effect to a very huge population of people. Same thing to traders and the market vendors. If you're just using, I know earlier on we were talking about some people using some contaminants when cooking some foods in the market. How many people are eating that food? Very many people, right? Eventually, how does that affect the consumers? Maybe that's why we see a lot of cancer coming up and a lot of some unexplainable diseases coming up in the country. So if each of us can take that responsibility to know, as a trader, I'm selling this food for everyone to consume, and it might actually harm many people if I do something which is not good to it. That would be very helpful. And then you talked also about for the side of the consumer, definitely as well. When you get your food, how are you preparing it? How are you consuming it? How are you preserving it? That's also very, very important. Yeah.
Okay, that's very, very important. So traceability is very important, but the whole value chain has to collaborate. At the farm level, produce well.
Yeah.
Utilize technology, it makes work easier.
Yeah.
The people are bridging consumers and producers. Also, there is so much room right there. We have to reduce post-harvest losses.
Absolutely.
And reduce loss. Then at the consumption level as consumers, let us be empowered.
Yeah.
Know what is supposed to be on our plate. Ask questions when it doesn't make sense. And at the end of the day, be intentional what you eat.
Yeah.
Make sure that it's balanced, more colorful at the end of the day.
Yes.
In closing, briefly, yes.
The last point you mentioned, I mean, if the consumers, in a very perfect model, if consumers can call the shots on what kind of food they want, they're informed and they say, we want safe food. If they don't demand for safe food, they don't demand safe food, and you deliver, if they demand safe food and you deliver unsafe food, they will not purchase it, yeah?
Yes.
So if that can happen, that would be very good. But I know we have a long way to get there. But eventually, we need to empower our consumers to make the right decisions and to know what they demand. If people are offering food that is not safe to them, then they can, come back and say, no, we don't want this food because it's been prepared this way, or it's coming from a source we don't know.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very, very important. Empower our consumers.
Yeah.
And let we as consumers also inform ourselves, because information at the end of the day is power.
Yep.
Beautiful conversation right there. Dr. Christine Chege, thank you very much for making time to speak to Farm Kenya. It's been a pleasure learning from you. Dr. Christine Chege is Senior Scientist, Food Environment and Consumer Behavior at Alliance Biodiversity and SET. And she says that it's time for you to take the reins of what you eat. Make sure that you're eating nutritiously so that when you turn 50, you stop, you don't develop challenges. Eat rightfully, because it is your own body that you need to take care of. Eat nutritiously. Well, that's been our conversation today. Thank you very much for being part of this conversation. My name is Nokip Kimboy, and that's from Kenya. We're out for now.
Kazi pamoja na tukue pamoja.